Alright everybody, welcome back. It is time to run through some more of our power rankings. We are going to be powering through them all today, the rest of them. As you saw from the previous video, we had 20 and 19. We're going to change it up a little bit from now on. We're going to be doing 4 teams at once, so 4 more videos, and then the final two will, number 2 and number 1 will be in their own separate video. So, we're going to be going through 18 through 15 today. To recap, we had Valiant coming in at 20, and then a very out there controversial, probably very wrong pick in the Florida Mayhem at 19. So, again, it doesn't really get much easier from here, but without further ado, we are going right in. At number 18, we have the London Spitfire. So, not looking like the most stacked roster I've ever seen in my life. One thing that really kept me from putting them lower, it was really 2 things. Number 1, Poco. I think that's a great addition. One of the more flexible tanks that we have in the league. He's been very consistent over the past 2 years. Obviously couldn't play much last season with, visa issues, with quarantines being reimposed and, infusion being in the APAC region. There were a whole bunch of issues there. But, I do still think that there are, there are several bright spots in this roster, him being one of them. The other one, I do think this is going to be a bit more of a scattered meta, or at least early on. And, when I think of players who are really good at those kind of scrappy, weird, 1v1 kind of flanky fights, it's Shax. His Tracer kind of lit up the league in Season 3. Season 4, not the best for him, but I do see a comeback in that regard. Sparker has shown some nice signs. Hottie should be able to cover the tanks that Poco cannot deal with pretty well. And one bit of news, Wrecking Ball is disabled for week number 1 of Overwatch League, which starts in 2 days, by the way. Starts on May 5th, Thursday. So I don't know if that, we'll see how that affects teams. But no Wrecking Ball because there's a bug with him that is getting people's games to crash. I think when he, what do they say, when he pile drives you, your game can crash, which I feel like was an issue like a while ago in Overwatch 1. But in any case, in terms of the supports, we're gonna see. They initially signed Provide. He has been, there are allegations of him of grooming, girls as young as 16, or a girl of 16. They said like this happened like a year or so ago. So he is now off the roster, and they signed Landon to London to replace him. So they have Landon and Admiral, who are a couple of unknowns. I think that's going to be a big factor. See how they do in their debuts this season. But overall, with uncertainty there, between Backbone and Sparker, I don't have they're lower on my confidence scale. And Hottie, had some nice moments on the Rhine last season, but still, wouldn't be in my upper tier of main tank. So with that being said, and the kind of lack of star power, those are kind of my issues with Spitfire. Also, Landon's coming in pretty late. So I think there's going to be a bit of an adjustment period. So not going to be one of our stronger teams to start, I don't think. And that brings us to number 17 on the list. And we have here, I went back and forth a lot with these placements, but I'm going Vancouver Titans. So it certainly looks like an upgraded roster from last season. They do not, they don't even have them on here. But in terms of their roster, again, I have some question marks. And mostly it's in the tank line. We're gonna see what we get out of their line. And here, I'll bring up their 2022 roster just so you guys can see. I don't know how to spell anymore. So We have False on the tank role, Masa and Aztec on support. Pretty solid support line. Masa, being a mainstay for Atlanta for a couple of years. And then they have Shockwave, return to them, and Aspire. So I see a lot of promise potentially in their DPS line. Shockwave and Aspire, two exciting younger players. Shockwave had a really nice season a couple of years ago. Didn't play a whole lot last season, but I expect him to bounce back. But again, question marks, around False. A lot of people have accused Masa of being one of the weaker members in the last couple of years of Atlanta. And Aztec, we'll see. It's kind of wait and see mode. But, they finished 19th last year. Like I said, I think they'll be a bit better. But do I think that they match up to a lot of the teams above them? And do I think they're in the tougher region? Absolutely. I think NA or West, whatever you want to call it, is going to be the tougher region. Shanghai obviously is the big dog in the other division, but other than that, Seoul's got a good team. But I do think that the West is a bit stronger, and they're going to hurt because of that a little bit. Also a good amount of new players coming together, so don't have as much pre-work synergy as a lot of the other teams in the league. And I think that that's going to hurt them, particularly in the beginning. I could see them picking up some steam towards the end of the year. But again, do not see them as one of the stronger teams in the league. Which brings us to number 16. And this is a team that, a little unfortunate. I would have them higher if there wasn't for a couple of circumstances. And that's going to be the Guangzhou Charge. So the Charge, kind of like Shock, they are particularly strong, in my opinion, in terms of the DPS line. However, their number one guy, in my opinion, Choi Se-won, is currently injured, and he's being treated for it in Korea. We do not know when he's going to show up. If he misses the whole season, I'm not exactly sure of the extent of it, but if he misses a lot of time, they could drop farther than 16. They could be one of the bottom tier, but if he's able to come back pretty soon, I really like a pairing of him and Eileen. Develop, we'll see. Haven't seen a lot from him so far. Maybe he breaks out, who knows. But so far in Overwatch 2, something that a lot of people can agree on is that Genji feels pretty strong. And that favors Eileen as a very good Genji player. So if Choi Se-won can come back pretty soon, I could see this team as a riser. We also have Molly coming over from Dragons in previous years. Him and Unique, I think, is a decent support line. Not top tier, not bottom tier. And they have some good tanks. Rio has been solid, has been around for 3-4 years now. Krong, a newer member, but I really, really like several of his heroes, Sigma and Roadhog in particular. He's got a good diva. I think one of the more underrated off tanks in the league. So I like their tank coverage. They should be able to, whichever tank ends up being, really good. I think they're going to have solid coverage of it. And like I said, you have a potentially deadly DPS line, but the unknown with Choi Se-won and the new support line coming together is what scares me off of this team a little bit. I think that support play is going to be at its most important this season. With only one tank, it's going to be imperative that supports get really good value at all times. And they're a little bit behind other teams, I think, in that department. So Guangzhou is ending up at number 16. So we go to 15. Starting to get towards the middle of the pack here. I don't think any of these teams are terrible. Even the previous teams I don't think are terrible. But these are the teams that they've either done less in previous years, or they have less firepower than some of the other teams above them. And that for me is the Paris Eternal, their second EU team. So looking at Paris, they brought back a decent amount of of their members. Naga, Khan, Don, Vestola. So you have a solid tank line in Vestola and Don. They're pretty solid performers last season. The big addition is Glister, coming over from Shock, kind of that star DPS player. But it's a Korean player coming in to a European team. So we may see some issues in terms of synergy there. They've got these 6 players right now. This is it. They're not gonna. Besides, being able to swap tanks, there isn't going to be a whole lot of options. I think Naga and Glister is a solid DPS line, but not as star-studded as some of the others. And especially in the last few years of Overwatch League, I feel like it's been just imperative to have a really nice rotation of 3. You can have just. You don't have to worry about your coverage then. You have your coverage with your 3 DPS players. We've seen some of the best teams, use those rotations. So that scares me a little bit. If Glister or Naga goes through any kind of slump, then they could really struggle with that. And Khan and Dredro, again, solid on support, but not quite. They don't quite have the star power of a lot of other teams. And with a little bit of potentially. Maybe they'll just kind of leave Glister on an island and have him frag. Maybe he'll integrate really well to this team. Who knows? But that aspect of it, the communication barrier, does worry me a little bit. Glister was with a half and half roster in the Shock last season, but still, I think it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. And that paired with the fact that they have a ton of solid players, but the amount of players that they have that can just carry games and carry matches and just get on these huge streaks to win them crucial fights, I don't quite see yet. So I think that they're going to be more towards the bottom or mid of the teams this season. But in any case, there you have it. That is the first 4-part power rankings that we have, 18 through 15. Next video, we're going to be going 14 to 11. So look forward to that, releasing a little bit later today. As always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think that these power rankings are way off? Do you think they're relatively close? Any teams in particular that you disagree on? Is there one of these teams your team and you think they're gonna win it all? Curious to know your thoughts. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next iteration of our power rankings.